Hey there, lovely soul. Welcome back to Noah's Stories. Some hearts are born into light. Others have to crawl through darkness to find it. Today, we follow Mira, a girl forgotten by everyone until the night a stranger came knocking and offered her something she never thought she'd have, a way out. Mira Dawson had grown used to being forgotten. She couldn't remember the last time someone said her name with softness in their voice. Since her father passed away when she was just 12, Mira's life had become a tunnel of darkness with no way out. The home that once held warmth and laughter quickly turned into a cold prison under the rule of her stepmother, Camille, a sharp, cruel woman with a calculating smile. Her two step-siblings weren't any better. They didn't see Mira as family, but rather as a shadow, an unpaid servant expected to carry the weight of the household without a single word of thanks. She was forced to cook, clean, do laundry, and maintain the house from dawn until well past nightfall. In return, she was given a dusty, windowless storage room to sleep in. Each morning, Camille would kick open the door, yank the thin blanket off Mira's frail body, and scream into her face like she was something filthy and unwanted. Mira had once believed that if she was obedient enough, worked hard enough, maybe, just maybe, they would accept her. But the years had carved a brutal truth into her bones. She was not a daughter, not a relative. She was an inconvenience that simply wouldn't disappear. And though her heart was tired, battered, and worn, Mira still clung to a fragile hope that one day, someone, anyone, would finally see her. That night was colder than usual, the wind slipping through every crack in the old house, making Mira curl tighter under her threadbare blanket. She had no idea it would be the last night she'd ever belonged to this place, though truthfully, it had never felt like home. A knock shattered the silence. Loud, sharp, and commanding. Mira held her breath. Camille, on the other hand, smiled. A calculated, cruel smile. "He's here," she said, then turned to Mira like she was an item ready for delivery. "Pack your things, Mira. You're leaving," Camille said casually. But her words froze Mira's blood. "Where? Why?" Mira stammered. "Someone's agreed to take you." "Shocking, I know," Camille sneered. "But they paid well, and I won't have to look at your face anymore." Before Mira could respond, the front door creaked open. The man who stepped inside made the air still. Dominic Rains. Tall, cold, unnervingly perfect, his presence sucked the warmth from the room. His eyes, sharp as steel, swept across the space until they landed on her. He didn't speak, just nodded once. And two men in dark suits moved toward her. "No, you can't do this," Mira screamed, thrashing, tears streaming down her face. But no one cared. Camille simply folded her arms and watched with satisfaction. "Don't act like a martyr," she said flatly. "I just did you a favor. At least this time, you're worth something." And just like that, Mira was taken like property traded for profit. What she didn't know was that the man standing at the door, Dominic, was about to change everything. The car sped through the night, streetlights casting blurred streaks of gold across the windows. Mira sat pressed against the door, hands gripping the fabric of her dress, her heart still trembling with fear. She didn't dare glance at the man beside her. Dominic Rains, the one who had just bought her like property. The silence was suffocating until Dominic finally spoke. "Who made you believe you weren't worthy of kindness?" His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a chilling weight. Mira froze. She didn't know why that question made her throat tighten so painfully. "My father died when I was 12, she whispered. "After that, I wasn't a person to them anymore." Dominic said nothing, his gaze fixed on her. "They made me work like a servant. If I made a mistake, they hit me. When I tried to escape once, they locked me in the basement. 3 days. No light, no water, no food." She paused, her voice cracking. "My stepmother said I was worthless, that no one would ever love me, that I was nothing, and I believed her. I lived like a shadow. No one saw me. No one cared if I disappeared." Dominic turned away, his jaw clenched, his hands balled into fists, knuckles white. "Those people," he said, his voice low and filled with restrained rage. "We'll pay for every tear you've cried. I swear, I won't let anyone hurt you ever again." Mira looked up at him, eyes wide. No one had ever said that to her. No one had ever meant it. "You'll live like a queen," Dominic said slowly, deliberately. "From this moment on, no one touches you. Unless they want to deal with me." The car stopped. Mira turned to the window. A modern mansion stood bathed in warm golden light, nestled in the quiet of the forest. Floor-to-ceiling windows glowed like stars. A different world, where for the first time, Mira was no longer invisible. She sat pressed against the door, hands clutching the hem of her worn-out dress, heart pounding so violently it felt like it might break. Her mind spun with dreadful possibilities, being sold, imprisoned, used. But Dominic simply sat there. Until the car stopped, Mira looked up in disbelief. In front of her stood a modern mansion tucked away in the woods. Not a prison, but something breathtaking. She followed in silence, every step echoing louder in her chest than on the polished floor. When the tall man opened the double doors, she braced herself, expecting cold walls and chains. But instead, she found a room that left her speechless. High ceilings, polished wood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows looking out onto peaceful pine trees. The bed was draped in soft white silk. In the corner, there was an easel, paints, and a blank canvas. "This is for me?" Mira whispered, hardly daring to believe it. "Yes," Dominic replied shortly from the doorway. "Your room." She turned to look at him, truly looked at him for the first time, and realized his eyes weren't just cold. Deep within them, something watched her. Quietly, carefully. "I don't understand," she said softly. "Why?" Dominic stepped closer, unthreatening but firm. "I didn't bring you here to own you. I brought you here because I saw something others didn't." Mira froze. "You? Knew? I paint?" "I didn't need to know," Dominic said calmly. "I just figured someone who had nothing deserves everything." She turned to face him, emotion rising in her chest. "Why are you doing all this for me?" He paused before answering, his voice slow and steady. "I thought I understood cruelty, and then I saw you, and I realized I hadn't seen anything." He stepped forward, his eyes locked on hers. "You're not property, not a burden. You're a survivor, a testament to strength, and I won't let anyone, not even you, forget that." His words weren't poetic, but they sank deep into her bones. Mira had spent years believing she didn't deserve to exist. But now, this man, powerful, composed, was looking at her like she was the most valuable thing in the world. "I don't know if I can believe it," she whispered, voice cracking under the weight of emotion. "You don't have to believe it yet," he said, taking another step. "You just need to know, starting now, no one gets to define you but you." Mira stood there, in the warm quiet of that room, with a heart that for the first time in years felt safe. Day by day, Mira slowly adjusted to her new life. A life with no yelling, no contempt, and no fear of simply existing. But what confused her most was Dominic. He was unlike any man she had ever known. He didn't dominate, didn't control, didn't touch her without permission. He existed like a quiet constant, never suffocating, never absent. Each morning, Dominic would set a cup of tea beside her easel without a word. At dinner, he always invited her to eat at the same table, not as a guest, but as an equal. He never pried into her past unless she offered, and when she flinched at loud noises or spilled her drink from nerves, he'd simply nod, as if to say, "I understand." One afternoon, while Mira was halfway through painting a dreamlike garden, Dominic paused behind her. "That scene is at a place you used to dream of?" he asked, his voice low and calm. She froze, then nodded slowly. "When I was little, I used to draw a place like that. Peaceful, no yelling." Dominic was quiet for a moment, then said, "That dream will be real from now on. After that day, Mira noticed how her heart skipped when she saw Dominic standing quietly in a doorway. At dinner, he always let her sit by the window, the warmest, softest spot. One night, she fell asleep on the sofa, book in hand. When she awoke, a light blanket had been draped gently over her. Dominic was working at a desk nearby, silently, not waking her, not speaking. It was the first time Mira felt her heart open, not because of a grand gesture or romantic words, but because of quiet presence, unspoken patience, safety without demand. Love, for Mira, didn't arrive like lightning. It came slowly, with every step of trust. The weeks that followed felt like another world to Mira. She slept in a bed softer than any dream, woke up to sunlight streaming through wide glass windows, and every morning fresh flowers were placed on her table, a quiet reminder that she mattered. Dominic never rushed. He didn't press her for answers or invade her space. He never touched her without permission. But the way he looked at her, when she painted, when he brought her tea or simply stood silently nearby, made Mira feel seen. Then one day, Dominic invited her on a trip. He didn't say where, just you need a place with no past. Mira sat in his private jet gazing at the sky. When they landed, a helicopter waited to take them deeper into the wilderness until they reached a lakeside villa nestled within the Canadian forest. It was surrounded by trees, water, and open skies. That night, Dominic led her down a path lit with warm golden lights. At the end by the lake was a candlelit table beneath trees strung with fairy lights. He got down on one knee. From his jacket, he pulled a velvet blue box, opening it to reveal a simple, elegant ring, shimmering like the look in his eyes. "Mira," he said, his deep voice unsteady, "I don't know how much the past has taken from you, but I know this. I want to be the first to give it all back. Let me be the place where your heart can finally rest. No more running, no more hiding, just love, honest, patient, and yours." Mira cried, and for the first time in her life, she didn't hesitate to say yes. When they returned, Dominic made his move. He didn't threaten, he didn't scream, he used power, the kind that shattered empires. Camille, Ethan, and Clara's crimes were exposed publicly, their bank accounts frozen, properties seized, their social circle vanished overnight. Camille begged for mercy. Dominic said nothing. "No one hurts Mira without consequences," he said. "No one." Mira didn't ask. She simply held his hand. The same hand that had once been cold, but now it was the safest place she had ever known. Mira had never dreamed of a wedding. As a child, she didn't have dolls in white gowns or fantasies of walking down an aisle. She had never thought she was important enough for a white dress. But Dominic turned the impossible into something beautifully real. They held the ceremony on the Oregon coast, where morning light draped the horizon like silk. Chairs lined the sand, covered in soft white cloth. Lavender and white roses framed the aisle, and a small string quartet played gentle melodies. Only a few dozen guests were invited, those who truly cared. Mira walked slowly, wrapped in lace, her hands trembling around a small bouquet. Dominic stood beneath the floral archway, his eyes never leaving her. The moment her hand touched his, the world seemed to fall silent. Their vows weren't grand, but so sincere they moved everyone to tears. "I won't promise to be perfect," Dominic said, voice steady but low with emotion. "But I promise to be your shelter, the last to leave and the first to stand up for you." Mira could only whisper, "I believe you." As they exchanged rings, Dominic leaned in close, his lips near her ear, and in a voice rough, low, and filled with unshakable intent, he whispered, "You're mine forever." Mira's entire body softened at those words, not out of fear, but because it wasn't possession. It was a vow that would never break. That night, Dominic didn't rush. The room was bathed in candlelight, windows open to the hush of the ocean. Mira stood by the edge of the bed, heart pounding not from fear, but because, for the first time, she felt chosen. Dominic walked to her, but didn't touch immediately. He held out his hand, waiting for hers. "We'll only do what you want," he he said, looking directly into her eyes, gentle but unwavering. Tonight isn't about giving anything away. It's about you receiving. And when their lips met, soft as a breeze over the lake, Mira knew. For the first time, she was being loved in a way that didn't hurt. There was no urgency, only tender gestures, whispered reassurances, and a space where she could just be, without fear, without pretending to be strong. Dominic didn't take her, he held her, as if holding a part of his soul, the girl he once promised to protect. That night, two hearts met not in need, but in healing. And from that night on, Mira knew she had truly stepped into a new life. After their wedding, they moved into a seaside villa along the Oregon coast, where the sun was soft and the air always carried a salty kiss. Dominic built her an art studio with glass walls facing the ocean. Whenever Mira painted, he often stood quietly behind her, not saying a word, but his proud eyes said everything. Their love wasn't loud. It was constant, steady. Dominic never stopped finding ways to make Mira smile. A handful of wildflowers, a night under a blanket watching old films, or simply sitting beside her, holding her hand like it was the most precious thing in the world. Then, one spring afternoon, Mira found out she was pregnant. She walked into Dominic's office, holding the test, eyes brimming with tears. He looked up and immediately stood. "Is it true?" he asked, rushing toward her. She nodded, unable to speak. Tears slipped down before she could stop them. Dominic pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could hardly breathe. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, and whispered, "Thank you. Thank you for giving me a family." From that day on, he rarely left her side. He cooked her meals, massaged her feet when she was tired, and every night he'd read to her and the baby with a voice so calm, so deep, it felt like the safest sound in the world. When Mira gave birth, a baby girl with dark, curious eyes and soft curls like Dominic's, he cried. The man who once made titans tremble now shook as he held his daughter, whispering his first promise, "I will protect you, just like I protected your mother." Time passed like the wind. Their daughter grew in love, and Mira became a true artist. Her first exhibition, titled "I Was Seen," attracted thousands. Dominic stayed beside her, never letting go of her hand, his eyes glowing with pride. In an interview, when asked, "What helped you survive and become who you are today?" Mira smiled gently and said, "Because someone saw not who I was, but who I could be. And sometimes, one gaze is enough to bring a soul back to life." Thank you for staying till the end, lovely soul. Mira's story reminds us, sometimes it only takes one person to see our worth, and everything can change. If this touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs hope today. And tell me in the comments, what part of Mira's story spoke to your heart the most? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and see you in the next story.